Ciao friends, my name is Joey. Welcome to my channel. I am having so much fun. This is going to be my second project with Didi's Deluxe Czech bundle. She has done one for the month of April. It's not a subscription and she doesn't even have like a regular timeline that she does them, but they are one of my most inspiring things that I get whenever she does them. So if you didn't see my first video, my first project where I revealed the Czech bundle, this was the pair of earrings. They're kind of a bead trapeze act. I absolutely love them. It was a little bit of a design on the fly because I normally make my sample earring and then do the other one on camera, but this time I decided to just like lay the beads out and do it. And you know, necessity is the mother of invention. I ended up with a little bit longer earring, but I actually think that I like it better. So you guys will not believe what is sitting off to the side of my nice clean beading mat, because as I said, this is such an inspiring bundle, high quality and so beautiful. I'm going to just pull in all the things that I have added into the Czech glass beads. So I've already made a little start on my beaded chain here, and all of the beads except the spacers came from the Czech glass bundle. These little hematite discs are from Didi beads, and I believe she has these seed beads as well. But I did go into my stash and get some colored purple coated jump rings. They are like a purple enamel, so I just thought it added another pop of color. I still have to make the components for this side, and these are 3 of the gorgeous beads that were in the bundle. And I have just started playing with this 26 gauge colored wire. To show you, it is the wire that I did the wire wrapping on. I just thought that rich purplish burgundy was so pretty with the dragonfly. So I'm still toying with my focal on this necklace, but this is, as I said, I have so much sitting off to the edge. This is going to be mixed media like you've never seen before, because I've also got 3 colors of my 0.5 millimeter Brazilian waxed cord, purple, turquoise, and pink, and I'm going to create a kind of a tassel, or basically not a tassel, but a fringe beneath this stack of beads for my focal. So I've already cut 2 pieces of each color. Let me just show you, it's a little bit easier to see from my spools. And this is one of my favorite brands of Brazilian waxed cord, but those are my 3 colors that I've added into my bracelet. And then also, let me pull in my other, I was not kidding when I told you guys I have a lot going on for this piece. So I'm going to do the beaded chain, and then the rest of the body of the necklace is going to be a really colorful Brazilian waxed cord chain, if you will. I've done 4 strands of the Brazilian waxed cord and 6/0 seed beads in a Czech glass turquoise, gold, and this kind of a opalescent pink. And so let me show you what those look like. These are just from my stash, just the 3 colors I'm going to be using. And I'm going to tie a knot in the end when I'm finished and glue it into one of these sort of mini kumi bead caps, and this loop is going to attach to the final little section of my chain. So like I said, this is going to be mixed media, colorful, joyful, just to go from the coated jump rings to the gold wire, spacer beads, Czech glass, Brazilian waxed cord. It's going to have all the things. And the beads that I have here, and I'm not even sure if I will use everything, but I just pulled some more Czech glass, and this time I went down to the 8/0 size. It's the same gold that I'm using in the 6/0 and exactly the same finish of Czech glass. These actually have a Picasso wash, just the smaller size. So that's what you see here. Oh, I need to put some of these out here. Let me add some of these. And then if you've been around my channel, you know I have a little bit of a love affair with disc beads. I love stacking discs. I love glass ones. I love metal ones. Any of them. There's something about the geometry and like the texture that you get when you stack discs. So I've just gone into my stash and pulled these little bit oversized wavy disc spacers and these kind of puffy, and they're kind of hammered discs, and I have these little daisy discs, and these are from Didi beads. I have a pretty big organizer of disc beads because I pick them up whenever I see them. It's just one of my loves in jewelry. And then all these beads are the colors I just love that Stella put in the Czech glass bundle this month. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, I cannot stop looking at my chain. So I do have more components to make. I've strung these little bellflowers back to back and just done simple loops. I'm using my 2 1/4 millimeter one-step looper. And this wire is just a colored craft wire. We have a craft store that's going out of business, and I've hit their sale a couple of times, and it just matched the dragonfly so perfectly that I think I might actually use that. So let me just show you really quickly what I'm doing. I'm using my 2 1/4 millimeter one-step looper, and I'm actually using up just some scraps of my 20 gauge soft flex craft wire. I'm gonna put my wire in here and get my first simple loop. I'm going to make sure that these are closed really well and work hardened a little bit by opening and closing my pliers, because I'm not going to open these again. They get attached with a jump ring. So I'm going to put a teardrop. Whoops, I have a little burr on the end of the wire. I'm going to put a teardrop. This little component is comprised of a teardrop, and then one of these, not that one, the daisy spacer, and another teardrop going in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to come to the other end with my one-step looper. I want my loops to be going in the same direction on this particular piece. So I'm going to put it right up to the front jaw of the plier. I'm making sure the wire is laying against the back plate and not, if it's out like that, you don't get as good of a loop. You end up having to work on your loop a little bit. So if you push your wire against that back plate, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to damage my teardrop beads, so I've left a little space here, and then it makes a fresh blunt cut for me. And then I'm going to slowly, see, I can see that it flipped, and that's what, it flipped away from the back plate. So if you push it back in, and I close it slowly, I see people with this tool popping it closed. That's not really smart, because you can break your beads, but if you close it slowly, you can see what you're doing. And now I'm going to pull my stack of beads down so that as I'm closing slowly, maintaining control here, I can see that that loop is centered perfectly on my stack of beads. And also, if I feel like I'm going to break my bead, I can stop. I can let up on the pressure here and just finish closing that loop by hand, and which I would do anyway. I put my pliers to everything because I like to make sure that my loops are perfectly closed. And I also like to just work harden a little bit by opening and closing. So that's my component for that. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of these others. On this one, I just put one of those puffy discs in between 2 6mm faceted rounds. I just love to play with stacking discs, and like, this makes me so happy. This chain is beyond gorgeous already, and it's not even near finished. So let me just show you really quickly. I'll do the first couple of connections, and then I'll make the rest of my components off camera because it's going to be just a repeat of that. Now, the jump rings that I have that are enameled, they are like, I think 18 gauge. They are so thick that they're difficult to close. And if your pliers slip off of a jump ring, slip off like this, you will take the paint off and then it's silver underneath. So what I'm going to do here, I think, let me see how it looks, is connect. I want to connect these two. I think that's what I want to do. That's the plan. Let me just show you. I think I want to connect these two for the focal of my necklace by that jump ring, and then hang my pendant from that. And I'm pretty sure that's what I want to do. So let me go ahead and get these two together, and then I'll show you my trick for getting these super heavy duty jump rings closed. So I'm going to get a hold of one side with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to use my nylon jaw pliers to really get a good grip on this side and just bring it together. And then I'm going to just use the leverage of my pliers, and I hear that nice snap, and just make sure it is perfectly closed. So that way I'm not marring or removing the paint finish from my beautiful little jump ring. So that's going to be the focal of my necklace, and then I'm going to attach same pattern up this side that I did on that side. So I'm just going to add this in, and my next component was this little bellflower component. And I just had so much fun creating these bead patterns, but I did find that these jump rings, and I think that I got these from Amazon. I have a little bit of a stash that I started collecting when I started seeing it colored enameled findings on the jewelry marketplace, and I think these are an Amazon find. When I edit the video, if I can find my order, I'll link that for you guys, but I'm just going to continue like that and make this portion of my necklace. So let's play with what we want to do with this drop. I do want those 3 items in my drop, and I know that I want to do some discs in between, and my 26 gauge craft wire that's colored, folded in half, does fit through all of those. So maybe I'll get a larger piece and play with, but I need a loop at the bottom. So I would have to, I don't know if I'm going to use, I love the color with this dragonfly, but maybe I'll use that as an embellishment. Let's see. Let me just play for a second. I'm going to take a long piece of this and see about making a loop with it at the bottom. This is probably more than I'm going to need, but I really love the color of this, and with the extra, if this works, I may just embellish the top of my beads with this purple wire. So I'm going to just draw this together. This is another thing that's so lovely, but you do have to be careful not to mar it and take the coating off, because I think it's just silver underneath, so you have to be gentle when you are working with colored wire. Okay, so I'm going to make a wire wrapped loop in the bottom of this. I fold it in half, and I'm just going to give myself enough space to make a wire wrapped loop here. I'm going to wrap kind of a chunky, messy wrap as well, which is, you know, a little bit out of the box for me, because I tend to do things as perfectly as humanly possible when I'm wrapping. But since this is going to hold more, I'm going to make it a little chunky. It's going to hold some, you know, 8 strands or 6 or 8 strands of Brazilian waxed cord knotted. Okay, I have just stacked some discs in between, and I really love the way it looks, and I do love the color of this wire, but I am not sure about using even 2 strands of 26 gauge wire for a pendant that's this heavy. So I'm going to give this a try. I may have to go back to my gold wire. I wish I had this color in a thicker gauge, but I do not. So I am going to come right here at the top, and you know, I think I might want to add one more disc at the top of this stack. I was able to put both strands of this wire through everything. Yeah, that's pretty. And so I do want to do a wire wrapped loop to secure all of my flower beads facing forward. And I am going to embellish the stack with this wire, and I'll see how it looks. If this, you know, doesn't feel secure enough to me, then I'm going to have to redo it. But I thought I would share this with you because this is part of my process. So I'm going to hit the camera with these wires. I saved all this length because, as I said, I want to lay some of this wire on top of these beads, mostly just because I love the color. So I'm just getting a wire wrapped loop in here. Now I have to think about attaching this. I can open my center jump ring again, or I can add another jump ring. And I think that's what I'm going to do since I'm really kind of playing with this. So I'm going to wrap right down to my beads. I'm going to need to probably pull out of the camera because the length of this wire is just hitting everything. So let me just wrap down to my beads and I'll be back. Okay, I've wrapped down to my beads, and now I think I'm going to go behind one more time, and then I'm just going to come across this Czech glass flower and go behind, and I'm just going to like embellish my stack here. It'd be better to do it with my hands. Just get I want my flowers to be facing forward, and I'm going to just come around the back of my pendant and come in there and come across that flower, and let's see, come right here, get everything facing the right way. Oh, it is kind of pretty. I'm going to go to the back again, come back up here to the front, wrap a few times, and then I could even do a spiral with what's left over. Okay, so I have fed all of my Brazilian waxed cord through that loop, and as I said, I really don't want this to be a full tassel. I just want it to be some beaded fringiness, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to pull this together and do a big overhand knot right here. And I did think about like doing a cone or a tassel type bead cap here, but honestly I think it would make it look more like a tassel. So I am going to use my knotting tweezer and reach inside this loop, this gangle of threads, and get a hold of all the threads right at my wrapped loop, just like that, and try to pull them all together and just make this giant wonderful knot. And what I love about this is when you're doing something that is obviously mixed media, I love that it switches from metal to wire to a textile, and then the glass. It's really beautiful. When you're doing like this many, you can individually, although I got mine pretty good, but that is the start of my pendant. And honestly, you could really just leave the beads, leave the strands just without beads, but I think I do want to put some beads. So let me set this out of the way. Now that you have seen all the beads and elements going into this piece, and I'm just going to lay my chain here. Only half of it's done, but I'm just going to lay it here for that's where it would be attached. And kind of decide what I want to do now with the beads and the fringiness. And my idea was to like take 2 strands and just kind of intersperse some beads and some seed beads, and just do some like random knots. See if I can get 2 strands. And on this particular Brazilian wax cord, you can pinch and twist your individual strands to kind of make a natural needle to get through your beads. But you can also use clear nail polish or some super glue to stiffen the ends, and it depends on the brand. Some brands I don't feel I need to do that, and then other brands I feel like I do need to do that. And so what I'm going to do is just tie an overhand knot and let that bead kind of float down to the knot, and reach inside with my knotting tweezer, just where I want the knot to be, and just tighten it down. And my first bead is on, and then I'm just gonna do like do that, pick up like next I'll pick up the 2 turquoise strands, and I'm just gonna choose another bead. I don't know if this little flower will actually, I don't think it will fit through both strands, but I'm okay with that. I'll show you what I do when that happens. Yeah, both two strands are not going in that flower. So when that happens, like, I'm just going to choose my spot that I want this flower to be and let one of the strands be on the outside of the flower, one is going through the flower. And in this case, since I can't fit both strands, I'm going to do a knot above and below. So let me take it off, and I'm going to go ahead and put a knot here, and that will hold this in place. I want it to be beneath my, I want to stagger what I'm adding onto my fringy section. So let me get my hand out of the way and I'll show you what I mean on this. I want this flower bead to not be lined up across this bead, and as I add in, I'm going to stagger my add-ons. And then I'll go back to this again and just get one thread through this little flower bead and let one hang out on the outside, and then do another overhand knot. So the reason I knotted the top of that one is just to really like hold this flower in place, since two strands don't go through the hole. You don't have to have a knotting tweezer for these projects, but honestly, I can't even imagine doing one without my knotting tweezer. You can do it with your fingers. I think you get your own rhythm with these kinds of things though. It's the same with your simple loops on your components. I love my one-step looper. I'm pretty fast at making a beaded chain with it, but if you like making your simple loops with your pliers, you know, like, that's your rhythm. So that's my plan, is to fill this up with beads here and there. I'm gonna come to my purple strand. I want it to be pretty long and dramatic, and I'm probably going to even leave some of the strands blank. I'm just going to keep going until I'm happy with the look. On this one, I think I'm also going to do a knot above it. So I'm going to keep going on this. As I said, the components and this part are very repetitive, and I really love this. This is my therapy. This is how I cope with life. I sit and do stringing and knotting and beading. So I'm going to sit here and just fill this up off camera, and I will come back and show you what what I come up with, like the fullness that I like is what I'm trying to say. And I'm going to finish my beaded components, and I'll come back and show you what the back part of this necklace is going to look like. Okay, there's a little bit of commotion around me this afternoon, but I am so close to finishing this piece, and it's so beautiful. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. So I'm down to my last 5 beads and my last few knots. So let me clean up my mat. I love these little trays. Since I've found them, I have added them in my little list of favorite tools, because when you have to string any kind of small beads, they make stringing really easy and cleanup really easy. I really wanted a lot of my waxed cord to show. I just thought the colors were just perfect. So I left really long spaces in between the beads of my different colors, and I did little groups of 3 and 5 seed beads in the gold and turquoise down here. Put some little bends in my wire to make it kind of dance around that focal point. And at the bottom here, I did a double knot at the end of every bead. And what I've decided to do is just create even more fringiness. So I'm going to come right at the end and just trim about that much, just a little bit. And I'm going to take my knotting tweezers and separate all those little fibers and just make a little bit of fringe at the bottom. So just like that. It can be kind of random. Just gonna trim each one. Okay, and then I just used my knotting tweezer to separate all the fibers. They probably would separate a little bit on their own with wear, but I'm gonna give them a little help to get started. This is such a boho look, but it's also just really joyful spring and summer jewelry. And what I love about this, and I'll show you kind of my pattern, is it does have flowers in it. but it's not like a flower garden explosion like I have done recently, some of those kinds of projects. Now that that is done, let me share with you how this turned out. So I ended up adding 3 of my purple jump rings to hang my pendant or my focal from the center. And my little beaded chain part of this necklace is just stunning, separated by those purple jump rings. And then I was looking for a really beautiful way to transition into the knotted part. So I'm using one of these little kumi end caps. I did a knot on the waxed cord and pushed it in, and then pushed one pink bead down and then did another knot behind it. So it gives me this really beautiful transition into my beaded cord part of the necklace. And I decided as I was stringing that I'm not going to put a clasp on this. It's a really nice long boho, would look great with a maxi dress or even a swimsuit cover up, like a long white swimsuit cover up. This would be so beautiful for resort wear. And so what I did is I started on this end with 3 gold 6/0 seed beads flanked by a knot, and then a little blank section of cord, and then I went to 3 pink, 3 turquoise, back to 3 gold, and that is my pattern through the entire piece. And here's where I am. So I have, after the pink, I'm due for the 3 turquoise, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Now if you want to get out a ruler and measure this length in between each bead station, you totally can, but if you know me at all, you know that I did not do that. I started out eyeballing it, which is just fine for me. I got it pretty good, and I just don't think that this type of thing has to be perfect. But if you're insecure about just guesstimating, you can make your overhand knot and pull it down loosely, put your tweezer inside the loop and get a hold of the threads, and you can lay it next to, let me come down to where I started working. You can lay it next to your previous station. Let me make sure that I'm under the camera lens. You can lay it next to your previous bead station. And as I said with the knotting tweezers, wherever the tip of your tweezer is, that is where your knot will land. So that tells you that, let me move it out of the way, that tells you that right there is where that knot needs to be. So when I pull, that knot is going to land right there on my mark. And before you tighten down, you can, before you commit, you can, you know, double check yourself, but that's way more technical than I did this. Honestly, it is. I just like strung and knotted, and little you know, discrepancies in that space doesn't show. It really doesn't. So that's my stopper knot for my next bead station. And the other little trick is 4 strands of the 0.5 millimeter fit beautifully through a 6/0 seed bead, but getting the 4th strand in was starting to be a little bit of a pain, and I like to relax and enjoy my stringing process. So what I did is put 3 strands in, and I have a big eye needle on my 4th strand, and then you just want to be careful not to pierce any of your cords and unravel them, but that easily gets that 4th strand through. So that's what I did. I just left a big eye needle on one of my strands, and actually I was showing that to you, but actually I strung all 3 of my beads on the 3 cords and then ran the big eye needle through all 3 of them at one time, and that was really fast, and I got through the length of my chain, for lack of a better word, that way. So I'm just going to do that for the last 2 bead stations, and then I'll show you how I'm going to transition back down into my beaded chain part. So that's what I did, and just, you know, straighten out all your cords, make sure that this little section is nice and straight, and then just an overhand knot like I've been doing, and reach through that loop with the tweezers, get a hold of the all 4 threads at the top of the seed bead stack and pull. And so this will be my last bead station. So I'm going to do my last overhand knot. So there's that, and here now my last 3. I am finishing with 3 gold seed beads because that's how it is on this side, and since this is a pop over your head design, when this comes around to this side, this will be front and center on the necklace. So I just wanted to make sure that I kept going with my stringing and knotting until I would finish with a gold gold bead station. And ironically, that really put me kind of at the end of the length of cord that I had cut as well. And I didn't measure that either. I put it around my neck and guesstimated how much I would eat up with my knotting. So let me get 3 on. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and thread on this last pink seed bead that's actually going to get kind of glued to the knot and to the end cap. So I'm going to go ahead and get that on there and just let it hang out for now. Take my big eye needle off. I got this really cute little needle case with a magnetic base. I have a dog and a cat, and I'm really careful with my needles because I've heard terrible stories about bad things happening to dogs and cats. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to come right here and make my last knot. I'm going to do the same thing, just make my last knot that distance away. I just realized that I can't put that pink bead on just yet. It has to go on after my last knot. Doing this in reverse is messing with my dyslexia. But I caught the mistake, so that was good. So let me do that again. See how that looks. Perfect. And I'm going to do one more knot on top of that, and then feed on my pink bead. I have to do this side in reverse of the first side. I'm going to put that knot right on top. I want this to be nice and chunky, and then feed on my pink bead onto all 4 strands. Now, the knot that I'm going to tie is going to be the one that gets the glue and goes inside the end cap. So I want to make this knot really chunky, because it is going to go inside. I want to just make sure that it, you know, the opening of the end cap is filled with the knot. Okay, and let's just trim all of this away before we put the glue. Okay, this is the fun part. So I'm going to take some Loctite gel super glue and fill up this cap pretty well. Just get a little bead flowing, just kind of fill up this cap. Not all the way, because I'm going to push this knot inside and I don't want glue oozing out, but I also want a really good connection, so I want plenty of glue in there. Just going to push it in, and I just found that pink 6/0 seed bead was just a really good fit. So that looks really good. And I'm just going to let that dry. And the last thing that's going to happen is putting this last jump ring to the simple loop on the last component and connecting it to my glued end. I'm going to go ahead and close this and set it to dry for about 15 minutes, and then I will take the final photos for you guys and post a little video at the end of this so that you can have a really good look, because this is super long. I totally love it. It is my style. In a hot climate, for me, this lightweight jewelry that is not up close to my neck is so comfortable, and the ease of popping this on over your head without any clasp to fiddle with. I just think it's wonderful, and I wear these pieces so much. I don't want to pull on this until it dries, but this is so gorgeous. I love this non-tassel fringiness at the bottom. I also love how long it is, because on a necklace, a lot of times only other people get to enjoy the beads, but this is down low enough on my outfit that I can see the stunning colors and play with all the beads in my fringiness. And like, the beauty of this is where I can see it. I am so excited to wear this, and I just love, this is like mixed media galore, because truly this goes from Czech glass to metal to cording to you know, spacer beads to enamel jump rings. Like, it is just all the things all in one. And it's busy, but in a really beautiful way. I'm so proud of it, and I just love it. I hope you got something out of the project. If you are interested in the Didi's Deluxe Czech bundle, the links will be in the description box under this video. At the time of this filming, I know they are not sold out yet, but they are in limited supply, so don't wait if you're interested. And always check my description box if you saw anything else you were interested in. I really try to list everything for your convenience, and so when you use my links, it helps out my channel, but then it saves you time as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody's safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. See you in the next video.